Saints 10-2, clinching their fourth straight playoff berth and trying to do what they did back in 2009, finish it all with a Super Bowl championship. He is Sean Payton. Coach, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's great to talk to you as always. And I talked to your current starting quarterback, Taysom Hill, after the game on Sunday. He made it clear to me that the latest episode of the Don't Eat the Cheese prop includes baskets of cheese that were given to all players put in their lockers. That sounds like a hell of a lot of cheese that you had to track down.
Every once in a while there's a request, and I don't know sometimes how they're fulfilled. They just get fulfilled. You know, there was a company on the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner called Acme. And a truck would just pull up. But anyway, it came during that Thanksgiving break, and I thought, look, there's a message behind it, and then also they can bring back a basket of some crackers, mustard, cheese, et cetera, to their house. But look, these guys have been responding. They understand each week. They understand the challenges each week, especially in this league. And that's you're trying to think of unique ways to just make sure they're working on that game and not any other.
How much do you have to remind yourself of that? You're rocketing toward the postseason again, first team to officially clinch this year. We know what's happened each of the last 3 years. You don't need me to remind you of it. How much do you have to keep yourself from peeking ahead, thinking ahead, looking ahead, and follow your own don't eat the cheese mantra?
Yeah, I think it's different for coaches. I know it's different for me, and I can only say this, early in the week, like today, Tuesday, we're game planning now on Philly and going through first and second down, third down. And for me, at the beginning, in the middle of each week, the team we're getting ready to play looks like the 85 Bears. In other words, there are new challenges, there are new problems. We have to come up with solutions. You're unsettled a little bit because you want to make sure you have the right plan. Is this the right way to attack this team? There are a lot of those questions racing through your mind. And as the week progresses, those begin to get calmed down. You begin to maybe get more and more, not confident, but more and more of an understanding, more and more clarity relative to what you want to do. And so it is that short term. The whole day today is first and second down. And yesterday, I'll take a peek always at the league touchdown reel and record basically every touchdown that's scored and run and pass and then some other special situations that come up, and kind of keep a file of that just so you're not losing track of a good idea, something that, looked pretty good and it may come up in a game, if not that week, maybe down the road. But back to your question, I think it's our jobs as coaches sometimes to, hey, haul them in, bring them in and say, look, here are the things that can beat us this week. And this is what this team does well. And you have to understand every week, man, we're playing an NFL team, and these are the things that they do exceptionally well. And so I think it's a little easier for us not to get ahead. And the important thing is communicating that to everyone.
You did a masterful job a few weeks ago of keeping close to the vest the identity of your starting quarterback after Drew Brees was injured. This week, you're preparing to face an Eagles team that is yet to announce its starter. Will it be Carson Wentz? Will it be Jalen Hurts? How much of that is a practical impediment to your efforts to game plan when you don't know who the starter is going to be?
I think it's a good question. I think in their case, and this would be just my opinion, both of those quarterbacks have athleticism that can beat you outside the pocket. They can beat you with the off-schedule throws when they elude. They can throw on the run very well. I think sometimes when there's a dramatic difference between A and B, you'd like to know earlier in your planning, and yet, generally speaking, when you're defending a team, you're defending an offense, but there can be some subtle differences And when player X goes out, we've all seen this before. In game, a player get hurt, and a game has a certain flow to it. And then another player comes in at that position, particularly quarterback, and all of a sudden it's like, what happened? And there's a different flow to it. And sometimes that can be from the skill set variation from 1 to 2.
I have a question for you that very possibly is a stupid question, but that's never stopped me in the past. One of my theories for why you kept it quiet a few weeks ago between Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, it made it a bigger issue. It made it a bigger game. It made it more of a focus and necessarily put a little more pressure on Taysom. Was that part of the motivation to test him a little bit, to see how he would hold up when everyone is paying attention to what he does?
Well, look, that was going to be a big game for him regardless. It was going to be his first start. And, was there a certain amount of pressure on him in that game? I absolutely. I felt that myself, even as the head coach or the play caller, because, look, people don't want to be wrong. People expect certain things to happen, and then all of a sudden it's something else. Then it's like, well, why is that happening? And so, look, the very first play of the game was a bunch with Mike Thomas motioning out to the numbers in a little sprint pass, and Taysom's wound up and gets out there, and we line up in bunch, and he snaps the ball and we turn. I said, what happened to the motion? And when you go through your first 10 plays, you might script 10 or 8 plays, what have you, and then go walk through them in the hotel or wherever you're at. And you kind of go through them 2 or 3 times. But look, he was excited to be in that spot. And I think for me and for us, it was a little bit more about how the game plan might vary defending Jameis Winston versus Taysom Hill. And Jameis, who had played in that game prior and helped us beat, I think it was, who did we play? The Chargers then? Where Jameis came in to finish, those are 2 different uniquely skills. The quarterback skill sets of those 2 are much different.
How much of the playbook is currently available to Taysom, and how has that changed over the last few weeks?
Well, I'd say it's changed over the last few weeks. And so there's no just, monster playbook that sits out there. It kind of sits in the computer screen somewhere and plays sit. There's certain run designs that we'll try to feature each week, but yeah, I think our job is to build this around what he does well. And, we think he has a live arm. We think he throws the ball well down the field. We think obviously he can run, and he can run real fast. But the thing that I think he did well last weekend, and it was the first real opportunity. 2 weeks ago was an aberration when we played out in Denver, and that's not a real good game to even begin to look at. But I thought he handled the third down well in Atlanta, particularly. He had I think we ended up in 8 and 9 or 13, but man, he made some really good decisions and throws against a difficult third down defense. And ultimately in this league, you're going to have to be able to convert 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, 5 yards behind the center in the pocket. And he was able to do that.
You've been doing this a long time. You now have 141 wins, 79 losses. I've looked at the records of some of the other coaches who have at least one Super Bowl win and either are or will be in Canton. Do you think about that much at all, your legacy, whether or not you're going to end up with a bronze bust? I assume it's a motivation for anyone who coaches, but how much of that do you actively think about?
Not a lot at all. I still visit with Parcells on a regular basis. I've got some close friends that I've had a chance to either be a part of their careers that made it to the Hall of Fame. I certainly think about Drew's legacy because that's more real and right in front of us. But I imagine there'll be a time someday you look back on it, but I feel like I've got a lot of years coaching in me here still. And I feel like we've built a real good program here. Our ownership with Mrs. Benson and the front office group, Mickey Loomis, we've had a lot of stability. I don't take that for granted at all. We've got a passionate fan base. I mean, an extremely passionate fan base. And we've got all those things that are in place that a lot of dysfunctional teams don't have.
You mentioned, Drew, what will be the factors and who makes the call on when he's able to return?
Oh, I would imagine like anything else, it would be the doctors and the player. I mean, honestly, I know that, we kind of stay up to speed on it. There's a little bit with his injury of like watching spaghetti boil where you've got to let it heal. And it's a little different than maybe a soft tissue or a bone bruise or something specifically. I mean, there's X amount of time that's needed. This is the week he's eligible to come off of reserve injured. And the rule this year was if someone goes on, you're on for a 3-week minimum. But each day we'll get up to, an update as to how he's doing. And then, a lot of it is, how does it feel? If you've ever like really thrown a baseball, a football or anything, and then you realize your rib cage and all the soft tissue and muscles surrounding it, it's pretty painful. And that's the thing, is to be able to, function without those side effects or things that might hurt your play.
This year has involved the tracking of player movements both on and off the field like never before. Tell us what Zebra Technologies has going on to better help teams and players understand everything that they're up to.
We're seeing it right now. Every time, how many times during a broadcast do we hear next gen stats? And that's Zebra. And it's kind of cool. My son, who watches all the games, they get more information than we ever thought about getting. It tracks the fastest play or fastest player of the week. He got to 22 miles an hour, and it's usually number 10 at Kansas City. And then they'll all of a sudden, give you more information as to what personnel's on the field. They can handle a lot of the busy work. All the teams are using Zebra now. We use it to monitor our players during training camp, and it gives us a lot of valuable information relative to their workload. But the more and more we start tracking information relative to the players, and each player has a chip, the ball has a chip. And I think, Mike, we're slowly moving to a spot relative to officiating where, we're going to be a lot more accurate with spots of balls or punts that go out of bounds in the air. There's just a number of ways that the technology, I think, can help us get us up to speed. We see it all the time, just in a casual spot of the football. And I think the fans, everyone involved wants that exactness now. And it's hard to do as an official. So this is a technology that, basically it's no different than your tracking system. If you have an invisible fence at home with a dog, you set up a surrounding perimeter, and then the chip inside of it, all that information's gathered and recorded, and then it's whatever you want from it.
101 years of 2 sticks and 10 yards of chain. It's long overdue for something better than that to determine where the football is and whether it's gotten to where it needs to be. One more question for you before I let you go, and I know you got a lot to do. And I want to keep this general. I don't want to make it all that specific, but we saw something over the weekend that involved your former defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, where he calls an all-out blitz late in the game, and the head coach lets it proceed. And it makes me very curious, especially when you're an offensive coach and you delegate the defense to your coordinator. What are the procedures? What are the ripcords in place if you see your defensive coordinator doing something that you just flat out disagree with and you need to change it? Is there a safeguard there to step in when you have that much power delegated to the coordinator?
No, there's never that much power delegated to the coordinator if you don't want there to be that much power delegated to the coordinator. But the communication's taken place well before. In our game, for instance, Atlanta ended with them having the ball, I think 19 seconds, no timeouts at their. So I think in a similar situation a little bit. Their field position, I don't know. Well, their field position got to midfield where they could throw one into the end zone. The game ended on a Hail Mary. I'm talking about our game in Atlanta, and I can only reference how we do that. And Dennis is into Utah, and it's a personnel grouping, and I'm like, Dennis, we're defending the sidelines, right? Yeah. And right away we're rushing 3. And so there's this communication, and then Dennis makes the call as to, hey, because we're in that gray area. Are they going to throw a Hail Mary here, or are they going to throw one to get 15 yards, get out of bounds so they get closer for a closer shot to the end zone? But there's dialogue well before the play, because there's a clicker on my headset that goes to defense and then it goes to offense. And so, look, I'm not gonna interfere with the voices and the terminology, but I'm clicking over and we're just making sure we're on the same page here. They've got to throw for the sidelines. They don't have any more timeouts. Let's keep the ball in play, and we're going to win this game. And listen, what happened there? Enough's been said about it. Just crazy. It was the only thing the Steelers needed last night.
I've been watching football for 50 years, and I can't remember a moment like it. To me, it's the defensive equivalent of the Miracle in the Meadowlands. Now, it's not like it's going to revolutionize defense, because everybody already knew how you play a play like that. You just keep playing it like you always used to. It would be the equivalent of a handoff getting fumbled in an age where everyone knows you go into victory formation.
Yeah, that would be a great analogy. That someone chose to run a handoff when a knee was all that was needed.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.